Hello and welcome back to our channel, where we uncover the hidden chapters of history. Today, we read diving deep into the life of one of Namibia's most complex and controversial figures, Mishake Muyongo. His story is a whirlwind of revolution, politics, and exile, a journey from celebrated freedom fighter to a man accused of treason. So grab your notebooks, because this is a history lesson you won't want to miss. Let's start at the beginning. Mishake Albert Muyongo was born in 1940 in the Caprivi Strip, a strategically important panhandle of what was then Southwest Africa, under South African rule. Growing up under the oppressive apartheid system, Muyongo, like many of his generation, was filled with a burning desire for freedom and self-determination for his people. He was a teacher by profession, but his destiny lay in politics. In the early 1960s, the winds of change were blowing across Africa. The spirit of independence was infectious. In 1964, Muyongo co-founded the Caprivi African National Union, or CANU. The primary goal of CANU was clear: to secure the independence of the Caprivi Strip. They believed their region had a distinct history and identity separate from the rest of Southwest Africa. This is a crucial point that will shape Muyongo's entire political career. Around the same time, another major liberation movement was taking shape. The Southwest Africa People's Organization, better known as SIMBA, led by Sam Nujoma. SWAPO's vision was for a unified, independent Namibia. Recognizing the power of a united front against their common enemy, South Africa, KNU, and SWAPO decided to join forces. In 1964, a merger agreement was signed. Mishake Muyongo, representing CANU, became the acting vice president of SWAPO in 1970. This was a massive step. He was now one of the most prominent figures in the Namibian liberation struggle, second only to Sam Nujoma. He traveled the world, representing the cause, rallying support, and condemning the South African regime. For years, he was seen as a key architect of the fight for freedom. He was instrumental in managing SWAPO's affairs from exile in Zambia and played a significant role in its diplomatic and military efforts. However, beneath the surface of this united front, tensions were brewing. The core issue that brought CANU into the fold, the specific question of Caprivi's autonomy, never really went away. From Muyongo's perspective, the merger was a strategic alliance, a partnership of equals. He and other Caprivians within SWAPO felt that their original goals were being sidelined in favor of SWAPO's vision of a strong, centralized state. They feared that the unique identity and interests of the Caprivi people would be lost in a post-independence Namibia dominated by other ethnic groups. These internal disagreements were not just quiet whispers. They occasionally erupted into open conflict. By the late 1970s, the relationship between Muyongo and the SWAPO leadership had become increasingly strained. He felt marginalized and believed that the promise of the 1964 merger agreement was not being honored. The breaking point came in 1980. Muyongo was expelled from SWAPO, accused of engaging in counter-revolutionary activities and promoting secessionist ideas. SWAPO claimed he was secretly trying to undermine the unity of the liberation struggle by plotting to break Caprivi away from a future Namibia. Muyongo, on the other hand, argued that he was being purged for simply advocating for the rights and agreements promised to his people. He fled into exile once again, this time not from the South African regime, but from his former comrades. After his expulsion, Muyongo didn't give up on his political ambitions. In 1985, he relaunched CANU as a separate political party and joined a multi-party coalition known as the Democratic Tonhala Alliance, or DTA. This was a controversial move. The DTA was seen by many in the liberation movement as a puppet organization created with the backing of South Africa to create a moderate anti-SWAPO alternative for a future Namibia. For SWAPO and its supporters, this was the ultimate betrayal. A man who was once their vice president was now aligning with a group perceived to be collaborating with the enemy. But for Muyongo and his followers, it was a pragmatic choice. They felt that SWAPO had betrayed them first, and the DTA offered a platform to continue their fight for regional autonomy within the political system. Muyongo became the president of the DTA in 1987. As Namibia finally moved towards its first democratic elections in 1989 under UN supervision, Muyongo was a major political player. He ran as the DTA's presidential candidate against SWAPO's Sam Nujoma in the 1994 election. SWAPO, of course, won a landslide victory, solidifying its position as the ruling party of the new independent Namibia. The DTA, with Muyongo at its helm, became the official opposition. For a few years, it seemed like Muyongo had found his place within the new democratic framework. He was the leader of the opposition, a legitimate and recognized voice in Namibian politics. But the old dream of an independent Caprivi, or at least significant autonomy, had not died. By the late 1990s, things took a dramatic and violent turn. Muyongo grew increasingly frustrated with the central government's response to the demands of his people. He felt that Windhoek was neglecting the Caprivi region and ignoring its political aspirations. It was during this period that a shadowy military wing, the Caprivi Liberation Army, or CLA, emerged. In 1998, the situation escalated dramatically. The Namibian government accused Muyongo of being the leader of the CLA and of orchestrating a violent secessionist plot. Facing imminent arrest for high treason, Muyongo and other secessionist leaders fled the country. They found political asylum in Denmark, arguing that they would not receive a fair trial in Namibia. Then, on August 2, 1999, the conflict exploded. The Caprivi Liberation Army launched a series of surprise attacks on government buildings, police stations, and military bases in Katima Mulilo, the capital of the Caprivi region. The attacks were chaotic and resulted in several deaths. The Namibian government responded swiftly and decisively, declaring a state of emergency and deploying troops to crush the rebellion. The aftermath was brutal. Hundreds of suspected rebels and sympathizers were arrested. The ensuing legal battle, known as the Caprivi Treason Trial, would become the longest and most expensive trial in Namibian history, lasting for years and involving over 100 accused individuals. From his exile in Denmark, Mishake Muyongo denied direct involvement in planning the attacks, but he continued to advocate for Caprivi's self-determination. To the Namibian government and a majority of its people, he was a traitor who had resorted to violence to tear the country apart. To his supporters, he was a freedom fighter, a political refugee persecuted for his beliefs, who was simply continuing the struggle he had started decades earlier. And that is where the story of Mishake Muyongo largely stands today. He remains in exile, a figure of immense controversy. Was he a visionary leader fighting for his people's rightful autonomy, betrayed by his former allies? Or was he a power-hungry secessionist who betrayed the national liberation struggle and plunged his own region into violence? The truth, as it often is in history, is likely somewhere in the shades of gray. His journey from SWAPO vice president to leader of the official opposition, and finally to an exiled alleged rebel leader, is a powerful and cautionary tale about the complexities of post-colonial nation building, the clash between national unity and regional identity, and the promises made and broken during the fight for freedom. His story forces us to ask difficult questions. What happens when the heroes of a liberation struggle have different visions for the future? And how does a nation reconcile the dream of unity with the demands for autonomy from its diverse peoples? The legacy of Mishake Muyongo is still being debated in Namibia and beyond. It is a crucial part of the nation's history that is often overlooked, but is essential for understanding the political landscape of modern Namibia. What do you think? Was Muyongo a patriot or a traitor? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It's a complex topic, and I'd love to hear your perspectives. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into a fascinating and complicated piece of African history. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next exploration into the stories that shaped our world. Until next time, stay curious.